Thundercats Roar continues to be the greatest garbage barge ever to traverse the kids' TV landscape, lowering the standards for animated series everywhere and giving the likes of Billy Dilly the creativity and nuance of Steven Universe by comparison. Each week, this unintelligible collection of drawn still images is broadcast. It increasingly justifies the eternally baseless take that modern animation is somehow inherently bad. For some reason, I'm opening myself up to experience this abuse again, even though I'm pretty sure we've established this show is basically irredeemable. Is this what being a fan of Cartoon Network feels like? Thundercats Roar is a show that's been receiving a lot of hate from the kids' TV space, and if the show's first hour is any indication, it has received such ire rightly. While I may not have sunk towards insults to the team that's made this show or anything like that, there's enough wrong with the product itself to make me wonder what the crew of this show were thinking while they were making this. My biggest issue with the series, and one they haven't resolved, is that they trample over every possible basic storytelling element, and seemingly actively reject the idea that the characters have personalities, are competent, or are even likable. It is a show that is citing new lows for what passes for entertainment in today's age, even as reality TV continues apace and Netflix will throw money at anything that moves. There is absolutely nothing wrong with having your show be a comedy. There is nothing wrong with making an episodic show. There's nothing wrong with shows in which hijinks ensue, and there's nothing more to them than that. I've enjoyed plenty of shows which have filled in all of these criteria over the years, but there's only so much you can strip away before your thing stops being coherent as a show. Even on a comedy-focused episodic show where the point is, exclusively, that hijinks ensue, you still have to establish the characters as something more than multicolored blobs on a screen. You have to still take the viewer on a trip through some semblance of a story, with a setup, a climax, and a conclusion. Thundercats Roar doesn't even do that. Imagine if OKKO never set up that KO admired superheroes, or that Mao Mao never mentioned his quest for fame through his heroism, and then never got around to acknowledging or rectifying that, and didn't progress the premise in any other way either. KO never working at the bodega, or Mao Mao never crashing into the Pure Heart Valley, respectively, in those examples. That's the best approximation I can come up with as to the gambit Thundercats Roar makes in every episode, and thus why I find it so appalling from a structural standpoint. Despite its existence in and use of linear time, Roar feels persistently in suspended animation, because they never got the animation moving in the first place. Episode 3, which aired last week, seemed to be tenuously making steps in the right direction, and if not adding anything to the characters, at least getting closer to telling a cogent story. Let's see if this week's new episodes take one step forward in that regard, or two big steps back. Episode 4 is entitled Driller, and it begins on a day like just about any other here on Third Earth, as Panthro wraps up another Fixer-Upper project. He's about to comment on how his work here is done before the quotidian exploits of the other cats offer him plenty more to do around the base. And then Lino comes in.
What the? You fix my blow dryer?
Oh, Lionel, let me see that. There, you're not supposed to get it wet. That's dangerous.
Lino is even an idiot off-screen. I get that in Thundercats lore, he's actually still a kid and all, but A, they never established that here, and B, Panthro's delivery here implies this isn't the first time this has happened. So 2 points towards idiot and 1 point towards things explainable leaves a net total of 1 point towards he's an idiot. So that's what I'm going with. As the other cats crowd on Panthro to tell him the things they broke, thus repeating much of the last 60 seconds, he insists that, like any good hero, he gets his payment in a job well done, saving and protecting the Thundercats from their own mishaps. Or, as Lino shows us again, idiocy. If you're old enough to use a hairdryer, you should be old enough to understand that it's hot.
The lair is under attack! Thundercats! Panic!
And if we're checking off running themes within this show, you can now also mark off the Thundercats incompetency on your bingo cards. Someone's making gaping holes throughout the Thundercats base, and they're heading for the core that keeps everything together, and Lino can't stop thinking about his own self-centered aims. If this is their idea of a running gag this episode, I don't appreciate it. Though to be fair, that idea has been falling apart since episode 1. As is their usual, the Thundercats fail to stop this boring menace. I mean boring as in telling through things, for once, until the very last second, and then only through luck. Panthro, eventually, springs into action and tackles this thing, and Tigra's lone plan is to throw his bolo whip at him, which only works because it ultimately gums up this guy's bit.
Alright, Pit.
Look, it's a metaphor for how this show handles plot. More seriously, the cats find out, through interrogation, that this guy's named Driller, and he has a singular aim.
You need to drill for diamonds so that you can drill for more diamonds?
Correct.
Lino proceeds to explain how pointless Driller's prerogative is, and here I'd comment about how Driller's efforts are an allegory about our continued overuse of our Earth's natural resources. If this show had any sense of wit, or any sense of sense. The show attempts to extract sadness here as Driller gets existentialist.
Pointless? Driller is pointless? Oh.
Hey, it's not so bad. Look at me. These guys keep breaking my things, and I keep fixing them.
So Panthro is pointless too?
No, I wouldn't say...
Man, Steven Universe's future is looking great! With Lino having screwed things up again, and Panthro too sad to even do anything, the Thundercats' lair continues to fall apart, and Lino is just fine with that. They spend nearly a minute making this point before they try and figure out what to do about it.
What about the Burbles? They've helped us rebuild before.
Oh, I tried the Burbles, but they're busy with another project.
Castle plunder nears completion.
That's definitely not going to be important and come back in a future episode. That scene means absolutely nothing. Honestly, I don't even really believe my own sarcasm here. Back to the plot, Panthro still feels what he does on the team is unimportant, and Lino sets off to prove to him that's not the case, by going to the reactor room and screwing up everything he possibly can. He's almost a useful idiot right now. Almost.
Panthro is back in action! Hip hip!
You've disrupted the Thundrillium core! This place is gonna blow!
Hooray!
They've gotta get down there, and fast. And the only way they can do that is...
And now back.
yeah, him. 25 seconds of restating the previously existing point later, Panthro rewires Driller so he's not sad anymore, in a testament to how everything is convenient and, ironically given this episode so far, nothing on this show matters. Panthro and Driller drill down to the core until Cheetara just so happens to remember Driller wasn't supposed to hit the core. The following is how they save the day.
Nothing's blowing up as long as I'm around to fix things.
I stabilized the core by unstabilizing it in reverse!
Now that's how science works!
No, it's not. You all deserve to explode. The last 45 seconds of the episode are highly inconsequential and only serve to tie up the loose ends needed to ensure that nothing changes, in episodic tradition. The one thing they actually care about getting right. I didn't really understand what this episode was getting at, exactly. It almost felt like they were trying to get to a moral, but the moral was so skewed and perverted that it didn't really hit as such. The main defining feature of this show remains Lino being an annoying idiot, and that lone quality shines brighter than ever in this episode. Our teachable moment left untaught, we head into episode 5, Secret of the Unicorn. We start upon a wonderful little landscape, a forest of unicorns. But what's this? The mutants are back, and up to a nefarious scheme. The mutants steal all the unicorns, save one, who runs off crying, eventually to make it to the Thundercats. Usually I'd complain here about how they wasted screen time on something inane, but it's actually pretty well set up and decently paced here, which I will reluctantly give them credit for. We get a setup, we get a motive, we get forward action for once. It's shockingly refreshing what happens when this show wants to be competent. Meanwhile, at the Thundercats' lair, our B-plot is being established. Tigra is enjoying simple pleasures, until Lino interrupts him with a sheerly ridiculous dance party. Despite it being a tribute to ugly Lino close-ups, the intermission is almost a good kind of ridiculous. The kind you'd see on a show that does this sort of thing far better, like Breadwinners or something. Tigra is predictably annoyed at Lino's antics, especially when he brings the Sword of Omens, powerful tool that it is, into this. He's an odd man out on the matter, given the other cats want the party. The point is rendered moot as the unicorn arrives, but can't bear to tell of her plight, for she is too sad. Despite Lino's attempts to come back in with the dance party, Tigra overrules him, insisting he knows what to do and that he can get this unicorn to loosen up. We then go through a minute of Tigra trying, and failing, to do just that. The mutants aren't having much more luck. They want to wish to destroy the Thundercats, but their unicorns are also too sappy to do anything. The influence of Steven Universe is really far-reaching here on Cartoon Network. After finally convincing Tigra he's doing more harm than good on the unicorn situation, Lion-O gets to have the unicorn join in on the dance party.
It's coming back to me! It was the mutants.
Toots! Should've known that. We're coming for you, unicorns!
The obvious anticlimax leads to a more obvious battle between the cats and the mutants. The Thundercats are actually competent this time, and the unicorn they've been helping gets on the action too, courtesy of Lion-O. With the unicorns reunited, the day is saved thanks to the Thundercats. And the unicorns even give Lion-O a little gift, one beautiful wish. Lion-O is actually very nice with it and uses it to give Tigra some noise-blocking headwear so they can all read, or party, in peace. How kind of him! Once again, Thundercats Roar teeters towards coherency in this episode, though I'd argue the pacing is a little rough. I will give them points for actually having a structured plot here, as well as a decent moral. If every episode of the show was more like this, perhaps Thundercats Roar could be a decent, or at least passable, show, and it would be less deserving of the rap it gets. However, 2 okay episodes out of 5 does not a good show make, nor does it make a mediocre show, as is Cartoon Network's current want. Thundercats Roar is objectively worse than Cartoon Network's other current fare, but there is one way it seems to be no different, at least if this week's episodes have showed us anything. The show keeps dragging you along in hopes of development or improvement. Episode 5 was perhaps the best shot this show's had so far at being adequate. However, I simply cannot stand or respect the path it's taken to get here. Modern kids' TV audiences deserve better than a show that annoys you at its worst and leaves you congratulating basic competency at its best. A show that sets such horrendously low bars for itself and the expectations of its audience in return does not deserve my support or my respect. There are simply far better shows out there that set far better examples for what current kids' TV can and should be. Cartoon Network should be ashamed of itself for developing this awful project and letting it go all the way to air with its blatant deficiencies apparently unchallenged. It's things like this that weaken my already low trust in the network and gives tragic nostalgics fuel to harp on. You could seriously make a legitimate case that older eras of CN were better on grounds beyond subjective taste based on just the existence of this show. You should not be able to conceive that, and the fact that you can makes me wonder about the continued relevance of Cartoon Network as the year and the decade wears on, as current favorites head out and newer series cycle in. Shows like this are not doing the network any favors. This is my 3rd video covering Thundercats Roar. You can go check out my other ones down in the description or check out other stuff from me up here. And if you like this, remember to hit subscribe so you can explore more from the world of television every single week. I'm Benzie Johnson Jr., I'm enthusiastic about television, and I'll see you next time.
It's completely pointless!